All right, President Biden sitting down for a rare interview with the Weather Channel. He has not answered any questions about the Biden family influence peddling scheme since Devon Archer's testimony last week, and all of these bank records have been exposed. Instead, he's going on the Weather Channel to talk about climate change. Meanwhile, House Republicans are ramping up their investigation. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer revealing his plans to release more Biden family bank records this week. Jonathan, your reaction?
Well, you know, it's interesting. If I were in Biden's position, I'd certainly want to focus on the weather than the turbulent and political winds that are coming his way. I think in his position, you're looking at a situation where you're trying to distract the American people with the spectacle of all these trials and criminal charges against Trump. And meanwhile, the evidence is clear. They have enough, Maria, to actually impeach him right now. I was actually just talking to one of my partners right now to impeach President Biden. However, you want to build a case, that's strategy. But right now, legally speaking, they have enough evidence to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence that they've spoken about, Adam, include bank records. The bank records have indicated at least 20 shell companies.
Right.
That money has gone into the shell companies and then come out of the shell companies, gone into Biden family accounts. They also have whistleblower testimony indicating that the DOJ may be covering this up.
Well, that seems pretty clear, doesn't it? The one thing that's not clear, and I think the only reason we haven't already seen some sort of impeachment proceeding or moving more technically that direction, because there are a number of technical steps in order to get to that point, a number of boxes that have to be checked. I don't think they've been able to check the box that says, here's the smoking gun, here is what Joe Biden did specifically, here's the money that went into his account, here's what he said at a particular meeting, here's the tit for tat. They haven't found the smoking gun. There's a lot of money that's been transferred, and it's gone to a lot of bank accounts. It's gone to a lot of family members, but there's still nothing that says, here, this is Joe Biden's account. There's the money that went right in. Or here's the transcript where he said, I'll give you this if you give me that. He's been very, very clever about, quote unquote, talking about the weather and sitting in the room. Right?
Now, we'll see what comes out of this Weather Channel interview. Yeah. What they do have is whistleblower testimony that Joe Biden showed up at meetings, business meetings with foreigners, whether it be he showed up on a conference call where Hunter dialed him up at least 20 times, or he showed up at Cafe Milano, which is what another whistleblower told us in the middle of a meeting.
Well, it's crystal clear. He was in the room, he was on the phone, he's on the calls, he's engaging with people.
And then there was the Burisma executive who said, we got to pay $5 million to one Biden and $5 million to another Biden, which of course has led House investigators to say that's bribery.
And by the way, which Biden? Because if it were Joe and you were actually able to see the money flow into Joe Biden's account, then it would be crystal clear. And they haven't found that smoking gun yet.
Yeah, and Mitch McConnell, Brenda, told House colleagues that it would be bad for the country to have an impeachment trial. McConnell warns House GOP on Biden impeachment, not good for the country.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of this coming into election year, right, especially with the latest indictment of Trump, is just political noise. We have to question the timing of everything that's happening, especially around the latest indictment.
Yeah, well, we are. And, it's interesting to hear Mitch McConnell say it's not good for the country. So is it good for the country to have potential bribery?
No.
Potential money laundering?
It's shocking, Maria.
Yeah.
There's no place for this sort of behavior in this country.
Yeah, and when they come back in 37 days, there will be two priorities. Kevin McCarthy may very well have the priority of impeachment inquiry, and the other priority will be the government's running out of money by the end of September. So they're going to have to do something. Do markets care about this right now, Brenda?
Well, it's interesting. We've had some Treasury auctions that have happened and that are happening. The good thing is that there's demand there. I mean, this number is just shocking in terms of the deficit that the U.S. is in. And particularly, the Fitch downgrade a few weeks ago, I don't agree with the timing of this. I think a lot of it is arbitrary, bizarre timing. One thing I do agree is that there is a spending problem that the U.S. has, and that needs to be addressed coming into this election year. This government is not doing a good job with our fiscal spending.
All right, we will take a short break.